Welcome to Talent Buzz, where I talk about SaaS talent acquisition with fast-growing SaaS companies. Today, I'm joined by Sara Archer, VP of Sales at ChartMogul, and we are talking about how to find the right salespeople to your team. We are talking about building pipelines of talents all the time. We are talking about how to run your recruitment process. We are talking about how to build your employer brand and how to make sure that you don't oversell the opportunity for candidates and end up with a big retention problems. But hey, let's start this episode with a little introduction from Sara and ChartMogul.
So my name is Sara Archer, and I am the VP of Sales at ChartMogul. ChartMogul provides the leading subscription analytics solution for SaaS businesses. So our customers located all over the world are using our analytics product to measure and improve SaaS metrics like retention, churn, LTV, ARR. And my sales team is relatively small. We're 6, and within that 6, it's new biz, account management with a focus on revenue and logo retention, as well as RevOps.
Yeah, and I think, what you mentioned there, your sales team being small, I kind of like it because I feel like the days are maybe a bit over for, building super big sales team, hiring a lot of people. And I think at least for me, it comes a lot about efficiency of the current team and how to get most stuff from there. But hey, before the episode, you asked me an interesting question. What is a good time to hire in your opinion? And I think that's a very interesting starting point for the discussion, because at the same time, I feel like it should be a small number and a high number. But what's your thinking? What's a good time to hire in your opinion?
I was just reflecting on my most recent hire, and from start to finish, the role was open and closed in 41 days. And this feels about as fast as I could go, realistically. So I'm a sales leader, so I'm going to just bias to speed and say faster is better. But I'm curious to hear your take. What do you mean when time to hire should be both fast and maybe slow?
Yeah, and I think, over here we actually come to terms a lot, like what do we mean by time to hire? And
Sure.
I think there's two ways of looking at that one. What you mentioned around 40 days, that is what we see, when we do recruitment for SaaS companies. If I look the days from the first kickoff with a customer to the point when the customer hires a person, I think our average right now is like 44 days. So we are around the same. But what I meant by why it shouldn't be actually maybe a small number, I think here is like, the reason why it should be small is that, most companies are doing their recruitments quite in an ad hoc way, very reactive. So they, notice like, oh no, some sales rep left the company, or now we need new people or something. And then they are super late with the recruitment. And I think, in my opinion, that is the only reason why companies aim to have a short time to hire. But if we change mindset a bit in a similar way that we do sales and marketing, and we are nurturing customers all the time, we are building pipelines all the time, then it actually starts to make sense that you are getting your time to hire even longer. So just to give an example, I just hired first salesperson to my team, and I think time to hire was like maybe like 500 days or something. And just give a background. It all started back then. It started from networking with that person, identifying that, hey, this person might be a good fit to our team at some point, having some initial discussions around sales where we both feel like sales should be going. And then, at some point it went to a moment where I started to get more and more interested in this person joining our company. And then we had those discussions, interviews. I was selling the opportunity why it would be a great move to join our company. And then, eventually we hired that person. And there was a lot of that nurturing going on. But then, we come to question whether that nurturing time is part of the hiring process, or is it more like your recruitment process, and how to see those differences. But I think you also have the same mindset, because you mentioned that you are looking kind of your recruitment process kind of like as a sales process. Like, what do you mean by that? Is it more like you always have next steps on calendar, or you do pipeline building all the time, or what do you mean by having a similar recruitment process to your sales process?
Yeah, well, it's almost what you just described, right? You were basically building pipeline, and truth be told, sales or revenue leader, your job is always to be in a state of passive recruitment. Even if you don't have any open requisitions, you should be taking calls on a weekly basis with potential candidates that could be a fit for a role that you might have in the future. Because then when you turn that tap on and then you kick off the actual process itself, you have that pipeline to draw on. So I guess maybe the first parallel is just like you would always be building pipeline and have pipeline coverage for your sales process, you should always be nurturing potential candidates regardless of whether or not you're hiring. So maybe that's the first point. The second point is around the structured process, which you started to allude to. So it's not for me always having follow-up calls on the books, but just like when you get a hot lead, you pick up the phone and you call that prospective customer straight away. We do the same with our candidate pool. So when I am actively recruiting, I have the applicant tracking system up and I'm monitoring profiles just like I would a lead list. And when I see someone that is the ICP fit or is the match, I'm picking up the phone straight away and calling the number on that CV just like I would a lead. And I think this is where sales leaders tend to get a little bit lazy, or maybe are overly reliant on HR or a recruiter to say, here's a Calendly, a bunch of email back and forth, when we could have just booked a call on the phone straight away. So this is like one of my favorite things to do. It's also quite interesting to pick up the phone and call salespeople. Some people are like, oh yeah, Sarah, ChartMogul. Other times candidates will be like, who? And maybe they're applying to so many roles, like they don't even remember what it is that you're calling them about. So I'm not sure if other people do that. Of course, we're a small team, so it's possible for me, but I like to run this bit myself.
Yeah, but hey, before moving forward to next steps, few kind of questions over there. Like, first of all, you mentioned it's good to have calls with candidates, even though you're not hiring at that particular moment. And
Yeah.
There's two ways of getting candidates in the pipeline. There's the one that you have an open job in your career site or somewhere when people are applying, and then there's kind of the one that you are reaching out to potential candidates. But what's kind of your thinking over there? Which way to do it? Because some people might feel it weird to contact candidates like, I would like to talk to you about career opportunities, but actually I'm not hiring right now, but I would still like to hire you. So how to kind of do the initial outreach? Or same goes to your career site, like how to have a role open there. Can you have a account executive role over there, even though you're not hiring at this particular moment?
Yeah. At this point, a lot of the demand actually comes inbound from brand building and people wanting to work for ChartMogul or be part of the sales team. We've done a lot of content on what is our sales culture like. We've done, some content on what does working at ChartMogul look like. And so we do have folks raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested. But if you were to do proactive passive recruitment, I suppose my suggestion would be, it can't be terribly open-ended. Maybe one day, 10 years from now, I'll have a role. That's a waste of everyone's time. But you should have some inkling of, okay, as soon as I have budget, the next role I'm going to hire is this. And either I am going to make that hire this year or not. So for me, I know I need to hire an account manager in Europe, and I don't have a time frame for it, but it may happen this year. It'll certainly happen in the next year. So my message would be, we don't have the role open right now. I think there could be some alignment. And I'd love to see if you agree. Realistically, we won't start the recruitment process until September. So having something concrete, I think, probably is the way to go. Otherwise, it's just too open-ended.
Yeah, I agree on that one. But I think for sales roles, it is in a way quite straightforward. Like of course depends how you're planning your business, but for most SaaS companies out there,
Mm.
you set up some kind of ARR goal in the beginning of the year, and then you kind of know that, okay, my current reps can bring this amount of new logos every month, and this is my kind of average deal size, and then you kind of know that, okay, based on our growth goals in these particular markets, at some point we need to bring in more people. So I think it's quite straightforward to know when you need people. Of course, situations are changing, but I do like the approach over there, where you are kind of predictive on your hiring rather than reactive, like, oh no, now I need people. But you mentioned that you build a brand, and they are people wanting to work at ChartMogul. You are sharing stories about your sales culture and stuff like that. Who, in your opinion, should own that? Because I've seen a lot of companies that are maybe building their kind of company brand. Some might call it employer branding or employee value proposition or stuff like that. And then at the same time, I do see a lot of sales leaders building their own personal brands on LinkedIn, kind of making it not only about the company, but actually about themselves in a way, that then they are sales reps that want to work for that particular person. And I kind of like that approach, because there's a lot of truth, in my opinion, on that, especially in the early career. It doesn't actually matter which company do you work with, but who's your manager. And I'm personally a big believer of that. But how do you approach the brand building in ChartMogul? Is it you? Is it the company? Is it both?
Yeah, so I would say it's both. ChartMogul's whole mission is to make it easy to grow recurring revenue. And so we do a lot of like data-backed content and a lot of resources so that SaaS founders can say, oh, I consume this content and it helps me build a better SaaS business. So from a business perspective, one of the first heavy investments we made was in brand design and content. So much so that when we go to a conference, and we say, you're having a cup of coffee, and someone says, oh, like, what's going on with ChartMogul? How big are you now? We're 60, 65 people. And folks are really surprised by this. They're like, I thought you were much bigger. And this is a result of really early heavy investment in brand, which earlier in my career, I totally underestimated. Like, I didn't think it was important. But brand and competitive differentiation are really key drivers. From a personal perspective, I think you have to have some interest in it, but it's totally taxing. For us, it makes sense that I do quite a bit of brand building, because we have a CRM product. And so it's very easy and authentic for me to talk about CRM and sales, because it's something frankly, I'm kind of a nerd about. And then, process and sales culture, I just genuinely like that stuff. And so because it is really taxing to compete or to hold yourself accountable for posting XYZ, I think it has to come from some place of like credibility or love. Otherwise, it's just too exhausting.
Yeah. I think it's a bit tricky, and one part I've been thinking about a lot lately is kind of employee advocacy, in a way that when, let's say, SaaS company has a big sales team, how to get actually your team members being part of kind of building your employer brand. And it's interesting because of course their main KPI is typically new logos or new ARR or something like that, and then it's kind of why they should participate in building an employer brand. But I think as a sales leader, you have a great opportunity to support people on that one, kind of make it super easy for them not to do it as a full-time profession, but really kind of every now and then post something on LinkedIn, or every now and then join some event or something like that to get your people involved. Because I think I think this is good transition point to our last point as well, regarding selling the opportunity, because it's always finding the balance over there. you want to sell the opportunity for a sales rep that they get really excited about that, and then they're like, hey, I want to join ChartMogul, and I want to quit my job where I'm already earning good money and I have great team and great product, but I want to leave everything behind and, and join the company. You kind of want to have that feeling, but then you don't want to oversell the opportunity, because that brings problems with retention for sure. But
Yeah.
then kind of when you get your current people involved with that, and I think that gives a good impression on down. And I use it quite often in our recruitment as well, whether it's sales or something else. Like at some point of the recruitment process, I give the candidate a chance to talk with someone who's already working within that particular role, and just let them talk and give really truthful idea of the role. But what's kind of your strategy over there? How to sell the opportunity, but how to tell also openly about the bad stuff, that you don't have retention problem in the end.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully for candidates, there's quite a bit of information online, and so those that are doing their due diligence can read and research on their own. A long time ago, I used to work in staffing in the US, and I sat next to a recruiter who would talk candidates into a role, and then she would talk candidates out of a role. And she would see if then the candidates that she had talked into the role could talk her back into, both parties being interested. And she was really cheeky about it. She would be like, I want you to commute during rush hour, because on Google Maps it looks like it's 20 minutes, but have you looked on a Monday morning at 9 a.m.? And so I think that came from a place of putting herself in the candidate's shoes, and then also being really aware, and this is so key, being really aware of how the opportunity that you're recruiting for compares to the landscape of opportunities that are out there for that same candidate. So at ChartMogul, for example, I don't have a defined sales career ladder for 3 account executives. Just I don't have that. I have ways to advance skills, knowledge, and ownership for my team. But that same candidate that might interview with me could have a really clear path to senior account executive, regional team lead, director. And so when I talk to candidates and I try to assess, what's important to their evaluation, but also their retention long term, I'm trying to think like, what else is out there and how does what I have compare on offer, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think maybe a mistake that some companies are doing over there is that when thinking about competitors, they might be thinking that you are competing against the same talent with the same companies that you are competing against on clients. And actually, most of the time, that isn't true. Because
Yeah.
I feel like, if we think about you as a product, it's quite easy to find a lot of, a lot of similar tools out there. I think it's with every SaaS tool. And then, you have your positioning and, ways of winning those compete cases. But then, when it comes to talent, it might be actually completely different things. And
Yeah.
we actually had this, very fun discussion, in my opinion, with one of our customers. We worked with a SaaS tool that was building a tool around kind of safety SaaS
Mhm.
tool in a way. And, we worked with them and they were happy, and we did a reference case. And then we had a case in the pipeline, and it was their direct competitor. And they were like, hey, like, how does it work in these kind of cases? Like, they might have some potential employees for us over there. And then we had very interesting discussion around, like, there's no way that someone from there should join your team. And the reason for that one was their culture was so different.
Yeah.
And it's fun that most of the time, because people think like, hey, we should get people from our direct competitors, I think most of the time it shouldn't actually be that one. And I think in your case, it might be, of course, it might be other SaaS companies, but then for some things it might be completely else. It might be that you are competing against some consultancy, for example, or something
Yeah.
completely else. So I think it's important to understand kind of what we are offering as an employee or employer, then what employees are wanting, then what your competitors are offering, and kind of finding your positioning on the market. But
Yeah.
how do you feel like? Do you feel like you've kind of found your positioning on the talent market?
Well, I mean, a big draw to potential employees is that we're remote. But we do quite a bit of conference travel, which for extroverted salespeople is a big draw because they might not otherwise have the opportunity to meet our customers in person. Have we nailed it? No, I don't think so. I think it's a constant evolution. I was talking to a recruiter friend of mine, telling him about a role that I have. And one of the challenges is I can hire anywhere. And he was like, well, what geographies are you looking at? And I was like, no, anywhere is fine. He said, well, I can't help you. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll just help myself. But maybe one of the harder aspects of, being remote is that there's a gigantic talent pool, and then being able to pay attention to the right sort of signals in that noise is challenging. But yeah, I mean, we have a good sense for sure.
Yeah. What about you mentioned the signals over there, and I know it's very, very difficult, when working remotely and you have the big talent pool. And I think, it is a good thing to have the big talent pool, but then, quite easily you notice that, okay, I'm getting a lot of people in my talent pipeline, maybe different cultures, different backgrounds.
Yeah.
What are the things that you are looking for? Let's say, you now know that, okay, in November, I will hire an account executive for the, German market. And, now you start to have those calls, and then you have, 10 great intro calls with candidates. How do you decide who are the top 3, for example, to go to the next round? Like what kind of things you are looking in the intro calls?
Yeah. Not in the calls themselves, but in the applications. Writing is a really strong indicator of a good hire for us at ChartMogul. Clear writing indicates clear thinking, and we rely on it so heavily. So writing, attention to detail, it's a small thing. Like someone misspells ChartMogul is like an automatic no, but I would say in 100 applications, probably 30 of them get it wrong. And then in the actual calls themselves, I am looking for technical competency, because smaller teams that have to rely on tools and technology to, create pipeline and further their sales cycle faster. I believe that the best account executives are technically credible, if not capable. I don't write Python or JavaScript, but our team can speak about data models, and they don't rely on a sales engineer or a support person. And then lastly, I really like speed. Speed and good communication to me indicates that when that person is, a butt in a seat, they're going to be speedy, and they're also the quality is going to be really high. So I guess cliche things, but those are sort of top 3 for me.
Yeah, I really, really agree with the speed of kind of execution. I've noticed the power of that one. There's, I think, a lot of research around the topic that if you are kind of the first one to, answer the customer, first one to do the offer, there's way, way higher, chances on winning those deals. And I think that's a good thing to test on the recruitment process as well. What is a typical kind of sales cycle for your product if you look at the data? I have a follow-up question, but this is important for the follow-up questions.
Sure. We run an inbound model on a 14-day free trial. So our sales cycle is typically 20 to 40 days.
Okay. Yeah, that's very, very quick in a way. Because my kind of follow-up question was like, okay, now we've, hired the right person, then the person is starting on the team, and, kind of how to figure out if I made the right or the wrong hire. And I think, everyone who's ever recruited salespeople know that they are, I think, one of the most challenging roles on getting right. I think it's mainly because they are so easy to measure in a way from numbers perspective. I think, if you hire a developer or, something around tech side of things, it takes a bit longer time to see the actual results and if the person is performing or not. But for sales role, it's very straightforward. And, if you have a very long sales cycle, let's say you are selling enterprise, then it might take time to, see if the person is performing or not.
Yeah.
But how do you see it for you? Like, of course, short sales cycle. So I imagine that you are waiting results quite quickly. But what are the other things that you are then looking in when kind of evaluating whether this person can continue being part of the team when they have joined the team?
Yeah, so everyone I've hired at ChartMogul has closed business in the first 30 days of their employment. That's not a testament necessarily to me hiring the right people, but our buyers are very high intent.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I give you someone that's pretty much ready to give you their credit card and like you can't take the digits down, then we have a big problem. But I think the thing that I'm looking for is self-awareness. It really takes 2 quarters to have proper product knowledge. And so even though you're closing business, there's a lot of stuff you don't know. And so I'm looking for that introspection and that comfort telling the customer, I'm not sure, I'm going to get back to you. And then they go read the dev docs and they get back to that customer with that speed and attention to detail. And so that to me is an indicator of this person's going to work out.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of good ideas about SaaS talent acquisition. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it on your social so others can hear it too. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to cover in this podcast, share it with me as well. I'm Samuli, CEO and co-founder in TalentBee, where we help fast-growing SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Make sure to follow us, make sure to follow this podcast, and have an awesome week. Bye-bye.